Hello and welcome back to Classic Books in Wonderland, or welcome if it's your first time. I'm very pleased that you have decided to join me. If you are new here, this is a channel where all I do is read. I don't do anything fancy. We just read books because I love to read, and I especially love being able to read out loud. I did that a lot when I had little kids, but now all of my kids are growing up and they're teenagers and they don't need me to read to them every day anymore. So I decided to start a channel where I could read to anybody who wanted to listen. So this channel is for grown-ups and it's for kids as well. It's really for anybody who wants to listen to a classic book being read out loud. I do one novel at a time, and I try and do one chapter a day with a new video every day. Occasionally, as happened just the other day, I don't always get a chance to do it just because life sometimes gets really busy, but I try really hard not to let that happen. I try to make that time to read to you each and every day. So currently we are working on the book The Secret Garden, which was written by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and we are on chapter 22, When the Sun Went Down. When his head was out of sight, Collin turned to Mary. "Go and meet him," he said, and Mary flew across the grass to the door under the ivy. Dickon was watching him with sharp eyes. There were scarlet spots on his cheeks, and he looked amazing, but he showed no signs of falling. "I can stand," he said, and his head was still held up, and he said it quite grandly. "I told thee thou could as soon as thou stopped being afraid," answered Dickon, "and thou stopped." "Yes, I've stopped," said Collin. Then suddenly he remembered something Mary had said. "Are you making magic?" he asked sharply. Dickon's curly mouth spread in a cheerful grin. "Thou's doing magic thyself," he said. "It's same magic as made this 'ere work out of the earth," and he touched with his thick boot a clump of crocuses in the grass. Collin looked down at them. "Aye," he said slowly. "There couldna be bigger magic than that there. There couldna be." He drew himself up straighter than ever. "I'm going to walk to that tree," he said, pointing to one a few feet away from him. "I'm going to be standing when Weatherstaff comes here. I can rest against the tree if I like. When I want to sit down, I will sit down, but not before. Bring a rug from the chair." He walked to the tree, and though Dickon held his arm, he was wonderfully steady. When he stood against the tree trunk, it was not too plain that he supported himself against it, and he still held himself so straight that he looked tall. When Ben Weatherstaff came through the door in the wall, he saw him standing there, and he heard Mary muttering something under her breath. "What art thou saying?" he asked rather testily, because he did not want his attention distracted from the long, thin, straight boy figure and proud face. But she did not tell him. What she was saying was this: "You can do it. You can do it. I told you you could. You can do it. You can do it. You can." She was saying it to Collin because she wanted to make magic and keep him on his feet looking like that. She could not bear that he should give in before Ben Weatherstaff. He did not give in. She was uplifted by a sudden feeling that he looked quite beautiful in spite of his thinness. He fixed his eyes on Ben Weatherstaff in his funny, imperious way. "Look at me," he commanded. "Look at me all over. Am I a hunchback? Have I got crooked legs?" Ben Weatherstaff had not quite got over his emotion, but he had recovered a little, and answered almost in his usual way. "Not thou," he said. "Not o' the sort. What's thou been doing with thyself? Hiding out in sight and letting folk think thou was crippled and half-witted." "Half-witted?" said Collin angrily. "Who thought that?" "Lots o' fools," said Ben. "The world's full o' jackasses braying, and they never bray nowt but lies. What did thou shut thyself up for?" "Everyone thought I was going to die," said Collin shortly. "I'm not." And he said it with such decision Ben Weatherstaff looked him over, up and down and up. "That die?" he said with dry exultation. "Not o' the sort. Thou's got too much pluck in thee. When I seed thee put thou legs on the ground in such a hurry, I knowed thou was all right. Sit thee down on the rug a bit, young master, and give me thy orders." There was a queer mixture of crabbed tenderness and shrewd understanding in his manner. Mary had poured out speech as rapidly as she could as they had come down the long walk. The chief thing to be remembered, and she had told him, was that Collin was getting well. getting well. The garden was doing it. No one must let him remember about having humps and dying. The Rajah condescended to seat himself on a rug under the tree. "What work do you do in the gardens, Weatherstaff?" he inquired. "Anything I'm told," answered Ben. "I've kept on by favor, because she liked me." "She?" said Collin. "The mother," answered Ben Weatherstaff. "My mother," said Collin, and he looked about him quietly. "This was her garden, wasn't it?" "Aye, it was that," said Ben Weatherstaff, looking at him too. "She were main fond of it." "It is my garden now. I am fond of it. I shall come here every day," announced Collin, "but it is to be a secret. My orders are that no one is to know that we come here. Dickon and my cousin have worked and made it come alive. I shall send for you sometimes to help, but you must come when no one can see you." Ben Weatherstaff's face twisted itself in a dry old smile. "I've come here before when no one saw me," he said. "What?" exclaimed Collin. "When?" "The last time I was here," rubbing his chin and looking round, "was about 2 years ago." "But no one has been in it for 10 years," cried Collin. "There was no door." "I'm no one," said old Ben dryly, "and I didn't come through the door. I come over the wall. The rheumatics held me back the last 2 year." "Thou'd come and did a bit o' pruning," cried Dickon. "I couldn't make out how it was being done." "She was fond of it, she was," said Ben Weatherstaff slowly, "and she was such a pretty young thing. She says to me once, 'Ben,' she says, laughing, 'if ever I'm ill or if I go away, you must take care of my roses.' When she did go away, the orders was no one was ever to come nigh, but I come," with grumpy obstinance, "over the wall I come, until the rheumatics stopped me, and I did a bit of work once a year. She'd gave her order first." "It wouldn't have been as wick as it was if thou hadn't done it," said Dickon. "I did wonder." "I'm glad you did it, Weatherstaff," said Collin. "You'll know how to keep the secret." "Aye, I'll know, sir," answered Ben, "and it'll be easier for a man with rheumatics to come in at the door." On the grass near the tree, Mary had dropped her trowel. Collin stretched out his hand and took it up. An odd expression came into his face, and he began to scratch at the earth. His thin hand was weak enough, but presently, as they watched him, Mary, with quite breathless interest, he drove the end of the trowel into the soil and turned some over. "You can do it, you can do it," said Mary to herself. "I tell you, you can." Dickon's round eyes were full of eager curiousness, but he said not a word. Ben Weatherstaff looked on with interested face. Collin persevered. After he had turned a few trowelfuls of soil, he spoke exultantly to Dickon in his best Yorkshire. "Thou said as thou'd have me walking about here same as other folk, and thou said thou'd have me digging. I thought thou was just leaning to please me. This is only the first day and I've walked, and here I am digging." Ben Weatherstaff's mouth fell open again when he heard him, but he ended by chuckling. "Eh," he said, "thou sounds as if thou'd got wits enough. Thou'rt a Yorkshire lad for sure. And thou art digging too. How thou like to plant a bit of something? I can get thee a rose in a pot." "Go and get it," said Collin, digging excitedly. "Quick, quick!" It was done quickly enough indeed. Ben Weatherstaff went his way, forgetting rheumatics. Dickon took his spade and dug the hole deeper and wider than a new digger with thin white hands could make it. Mary slipped out to run and bring back a watering can. When Dickon had deepened the hole, Collin went on turning the soft earth over and over. He looked up at the sky, flushed and flowing with the strangely new exercise, slight as he was. "I want to do it before the sun goes quite down," he said. Mary thought that perhaps the sun held back a few minutes just on purpose. Ben Weatherstaff brought the rose in its pot from the greenhouse. He hobbled over the grass as fast as he could. He had begun to be excited too. He knelt down by the hole and broke the pot from the mold. "'Ere, lad," he said, handing the plant to Collin. "Set it in the earth thyself, same as the king does when he goes to a new place." The thin white hands shook a little, and Collin's flush grew deeper as he set the rose in the mold and held it while old Ben made firm the earth. It was filled in and pressed down and made steady. Mary was leaning forward on her hands and knees. Soot had flown down and marched forward to see what was being done. Nut and Shell chattered about it from a cherry tree. "It's planted," said Collin at last, "and the sun is only slipping over the edge. Help me up, Dickon. I want to be standing when it goes. That's part of the magic." And Dickon helped him, and the magic, or whatever it was, so gave him strength that when the sun did slip over the edge, and in the strange, lovely afternoon for them, there he actually stood on his 2 feet, laughing. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a very strong moment in the story when Collin figures out that he does have the strength to stand and he does have the strength to dig. And now, in addition to knowing that he's going to live forever and ever, as he said in the previous chapter, he knows he's going to get well and be a strong, healthy boy, just like Dickon and just like Mary's getting, and it's going to be a very good thing for all of these children. So I appreciate that you came and joined me. If you are new here and you enjoyed this chapter, please hit that subscribe bell so that you'll know every time I upload a new video. You can also go to our Facebook group if you'd like to join us there. It is Classic Books in Wonderland on Facebook, and I post links to the videos there, but I've also been adding extra tidbits about the book or about Frances Hodgson Burnett or other little things that I come across. And I'd love for you to check that out and join us there as well. And also, if you have questions about the story, if you have suggestions for the next book we should read, because we're going to be winding this one up soon. There's 27 chapters in this book, and we're about to start chapter 23 tomorrow. So we've only got a few more chapters to go before we finish up this book, and we'll move on to something new. So if there's something you really want to hear me read, and it's a classic novel, I'm happy to take your suggestions and work those into the channel. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Saturday, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.